Once there was a man who had a beautiful forest, and one day he brought a deer to live in the forest. Every day he spent time with the deer. The man loved the deer, and the deer loved him. But before long, the man realized that the deer wanted a constant companion. So he brought a lady deer into the forest to keep the male deer company. Every day the man spent time with the deer. They played games. He told them stories, and best of all, he taught them to dance. Nothing was better than dancing with the man. Every day the man spent time with the deer. The man loved the deer, and the deer loved him. When the man was not with the deer, they enjoyed the beautiful forest that he had given them for their home. The man even put out dispensers so the deer could always have fresh chocolate-covered grain to eat. They had everything they could ever need or want. There was just one rule that the man asked them to follow. He put a fence around the entire forest and told them that they must never cross the fence. But the deer didn't mind the rule, because they loved the forest. They always had good chocolate-covered grain to eat. They loved spending time with the man, and they could run for miles without running into a fence post. Life in the forest was wonderful. Every day the man spent time with the deer. The man loved the deer, and the deer loved him. And of course, they all loved to dance. One day, just after the deer had finished visiting with the man, they began to wander through the forest. The lady deer was playing near the fence when she heard a voice. A wolf on the other side of the fence was calling her, saying, "It's too bad you're on that side of the fence. There are some of the most delicious berries growing over here. You really should try some." The deer answered the wolf, saying, "Oh no, the man told us we must never go on the other side of the fence." The wolf said, "That's awful. Why does he keep you locked up inside the fence? Maybe he wants all of these berries for himself." The female deer replied, "Oh no, he loves us, and he gives us everything we need." But the wolf barked back, "Sounds like he gives you everything but your freedom. Only prisoners are kept inside fences. You're missing out on so many good things out here, you know? I bet with those long legs of yours you could kick a hole into this fence very easily. Then you could come over here and taste these berries for yourself." The deer thought for a moment. The berries sounded really good, and if they were just on the other side of the fence, she really wouldn't have to go very far, and she could always come right back inside the fence. So she lifted her legs and began kicking the fence. Just then, the male deer happened by and asked the lady deer what she was doing. She explained to him everything the wolf had said. The male deer thought about it for a moment, and then decided that he didn't want to be a prisoner either, and he certainly didn't want to miss out on the good berries. So he began to help her kick. As the two deer kicked the fence together, it cracked, and a large section of it crumbled to the ground. As soon as they had broken the fence, the two deer were filled with horror. They realized there was a pack of hungry wolves waiting for them on the other side of the fence. The wolves burst through the hole in the fence and began to chase the deer through the forest. The wolves tormented the deer, clawing and scratching at them, and the deer were terrified. Then the man came into the forest, and immediately the wolves fled from him. The man went to the deer and asked them what had happened. The deer told him about the wolf and what he had told them. The man was sad for the deer. He explained to them that he hadn't made the rule about the fence to keep them as prisoners. He had built the fence to protect them from the wolves because he loved them. The deer knew that they had messed up. The man explained that the fence could not be fixed again, and that the wolves would always be in the forest, always trying to frighten the deer and hurt them. Worst of all, the man would not be able to come to the forest each day and dance with the deer. But the man promised if they would just wait for him, no matter how much the wolves tormented them, they wouldn't be destroyed, and soon he would come back and take care of the wolves. As soon as the man left the forest, the wolves returned to the deer, and life in the forest became very difficult. The wolves were always near the deer, clawing and scratching at them and trying to hurt them. The deer were constantly hiding or running from the wolves. The good chocolate-covered grain in the dispensers disappeared, and the deer had to look for their own food. The deer would try to stay together and dance like the man had taught them, but the wolves hated the dancing and did everything they could to stop them and keep them from dancing. A long time passed while the deer waited for the man to return. Generations of deer came and went until finally there were no deer left who had actually seen the man. The deer just had to believe that once there was a man who did these great things. The deer tried to pass down stories about the man and teach each other to dance, but many of the new deer didn't understand, and some of them thought it was just silly. The wolves continued to torture the deer, keeping them separated and making them forget the man. Soon, there were few deer left who believed that the man really existed. Then one day, right in the middle of one of the wolf attacks, a new deer came into the forest. He didn't act like the other deer. He wasn't afraid of the wolves, and as soon as the wolves saw him, they backed away. He reminded the deer of the man and taught them how to dance again. Soon, many of the deer realized that spending time with this new deer felt just like spending time with the man. In fact, this new deer was the man who had become a deer himself, so they could see him in the forest. Every day the deer spent time with the man deer. They loved the man deer, and the man deer loved them. The man deer was able to heal the wounds that the wolves had inflicted on the deer, and while the deer spent time with the man deer, the wolves kept their distance. Everything was wonderful again. All of this made the wolves very angry. One day they found the deer together in the forest when the man deer was not with them. The wolves worked together to circle the deer, determined to destroy them once and for all. The man deer approached, realizing that the wolves would not be satisfied until they had finally killed the deer. But this time, the man deer did not chase the wolves away. Instead, he moved to the center of their pack and drew their attention away from the other deer. The wolves were delighted by the thought of killing the man deer because they knew with him gone, they could do as they pleased with the other deer. Remarkably, the man deer was not even trying to stop them. He lay perfectly still, as if he were inviting them to attack him. The wolves closed in and devoured the man deer, clawing and biting at him until he lay dead. The satisfied wolves then ran off into the forest. The other deer, who had watched in tears, wanted to run to their beloved man deer. But they became afraid that the wolves might return to attack them, so they fled to the forest and hid. Several days later, the deer gathered the courage to come back so they could care for the body of the man deer. They were worried that the wolves might carry it away and mangle it even more. But when they returned, the body of the man deer was gone. The deer began to weep again, because they believed that now they had nothing to remind them of the man. Then suddenly, the man deer just appeared in front of them in the forest. The deer were amazed and overjoyed, and all who saw him knew for sure that the man had sent him. For many days the man deer spent time with them, and best of all, he danced with them. And one day the man deer told them that it was time for him to go back to the man. He said that the man was planting a new and perfect forest, and he was going to prepare it for the deer to live in. The man deer promised to build a fence so high that the wolves would never be able to enter the new forest. In this forest, they could dance and spend time together with the man forever. There would be no fear, no pain, and plenty of chocolate-covered grain. The man deer explained that when he left, they would no longer be able to see him, but that he would still be with them, watching out for them from a special watchtower in the forest. And he said that if they stuck together, reminded each other of the man, and danced, then the wolves would not be able to devour them. And best of all, he said that one day he would come back for them and take them to the new forest. The deer said goodbye to the man deer and were filled with hope. Everything happened just the way the man said. The deer stayed together and danced and told each other stories about the man deer and the man. Sometimes when a deer would wander off by itself, the wolves would claw at it and hurt them. But as long as the deer stayed together and danced, the wolves were not able to attack them. As generations of deer came and went, some of them forgot about the man. But many still remembered him, told the others about him, and continued to dance. Finally, one day the man came back to the deer. He took the deer that had danced with him to the new forest, where they would never see the wolves again.